Hello stars, welcome to my channel, Reading Stars. Today I'll be reading What Was the Age of the Dinosaurs? Since this book has about 12 chapters, I'm going to be reading one chapter every video. So let's get started. What was the age of the dinosaurs? In 1822, a young country doctor named Gideon Mantell was living in Sussex in England. He delivered babies and treated people with serious diseases. But Mantell had other passion as well. Ever since childhood, he had loved to collect fossils, the ancient remains of the dead plants and animals. Whenever he could, the busy doctor spent time digging near the chalky cliffs of England's coastline. At first, what he dug up were small pieces of fossil bones. But as time went on, he began to find some big bones, really big ones. The bones were too big to belong to any known animal. Even elephant bones would have been smaller. Then one day, Mantell's wife, Mary, had found a few enormous fossil teeth. She brought them to her husband. What were they? What kind of animal could possibly have teeth as big as this? Mantell weren't sure what to think. He talked to other scientists. No one could agree about what they were. A man named William Buckland had been given some huge bones. He studied them for 6 years and finally decided they belonged to a giant lizard no one had ever seen before. Buckland called it the Megalosaurus, which means big lizard. Megalosaurus. Mantell asked Buckland about the huge teeth he had found, but Buckland didn't think they had come from a creature similar to his Megalosaurus. He said they came from a fish. After that, Mantell went to a museum and looked at other fossils and animal skeletons on display. The teeth he had found looked exactly like iguana teeth, only many times larger. If they came from an iguana, it would have been at least 60 feet long. That's long as a house. Suddenly, Mantell realized something exciting. Like Buckland, he had discovered a new kind of animal no one knew about. He decided to call it iguanodon. You can see what an iguanodon looks like, or must have looked like. Neither Mantell nor Buckland understood that they had stumbled onto a completely unknown group of animals. The word dinosaur hadn't been invented yet, and wouldn't be for another 20 years. But that's what Megalosaurus and Iguanodon were. In the early 19th century, no one yet realized that in prehistoric times, the gigantic animals had roamed the earth. But soon, more fossils were found, and slowly scientists began to put together the pieces of the long-lost world, the age of the dinosaurs. How fossils form? When a plant or animal dies in a watery environment, it quickly becomes buried in mud and silt. Soon the soft tissue rots away, leaving just the hard bones or shells behind. Over time, these are covered by more layers of earth, which harden into rock and encase them remains, the fossil. Scientists who study fossils are paleontologists. The name comes from the word paleo, which means ancient or from Earth's long ago past. Chapter 1. Prehistoric World. 230 million years ago, the age of the dinosaurs began. The first baby dinosaurs poked their head out their eggshells and looked around for something to eat. The Earth was a very different place then. North America didn't exist, neither did Africa or Europe. All 7 continents we know today were clumped together in one huge landmass that we call Pangaea. Pangaea was surrounded on all sides by water. The center of the huge continent was a hot desert where not much could survive. A giant ocean covered the rest of the earth. Near the coastlines, the ocean cooled the air. Cool air and water made it possible for fabulous life forms to develop. Ferns grew along the coast. Moss covered the rocks. There were forests of pine trees and palm trees. Spiders and beetles crawled about. The ocean was full of life. There were huge swimming reptiles, animals like lizards and turtles, only bigger. Some called dinosaurs looked much more like dolphins or fish. They were predators that hunted fish. Others, called plesiosaurs, were more like gigantic shellless turtles with incredibly long necks. They may have eaten baby ichthyosaurs for lunch. They kind of look like dolphins here, but as you can see, they look like a dolphin. This one kind of looks like a swordfish, but I guess they look like fish, but okay. Reptiles also dominated the land at the time. They were none of the animals we know today. No dogs, no cats, giraffes, monkeys, or apes. There weren't even any birds, and definitely no people. It was mostly a reptiles world, although the ancient reptiles were not the same reptiles we know today. This was the beginning of a time period called the Mesozoic era. It began 250 million years ago, or 250 Mia, as scientists say. Fancy. It lasted until the dinosaurs Dinosaurs died out. Around 65 Mia. The Mesozoic era is divided up into three parts: Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. The very first dinosaurs appeared on Earth during the last part of the Triassic, about 230 Mia. Dinosaurs existed on Earth for about 165 million years. When exactly did the first dinosaur appear? Well, let's find out. It's hard to say for sure because dinosaurs had evolved from other reptiles over millions of years, but the earliest dinosaur was probably the Iraptor, a small animal weighing between 8 and 22 pounds. With jagged teeth, long legs, and long claws, it was a small, quick, deadly predator. It lived in the forest where it chased and captured smaller creatures. It probably ate plants too. As millions of years went by, different kinds of dinosaurs came into being. How did it happen? The answer lies in evolution. Evolution is the name for changes that occur in living things over time. Charles Darwin was a scientist in the 19th century who studied nature. He wrote a famous book about the idea of evolution. Darwin said that in each species, some would survive longer than others. It was not just a matter of luck. Those that survived were the best suited to thrive in the world. They lived long enough to have babies that would be born with the same strong traits. Animals of the same species without those traits didn't live as long. In time, they died out. Darwin explained that over thousands and millions of years, all kinds of species developed, including human beings, which evolved from ape-like creatures like us. Species. What is a species? It is a group of animals that have many common characteristics. To be within the same species, the animals in the group must also be able to mate with each other and have babies who can later have more babies. A poodle and a Labrador retriever are both dogs. They may not look much alike, but they do belong to the same species, Canis lupus pomillaris. That's because both of these kinds of dogs can have puppies together, which in turn can have puppies of their own. A poodle, a Labrador retriever, and a Labradoodle, a mix of a poodle and a Labrador retriever. Well, this is chapter 2 that we will be reading the next video.